All right, so we clearly need a consultation with the High Priestess here. Are these organizations representative of the future of the internet, or are they anomalous?
Well, I guess what's representative is that more and more users are actually contributing to the internet. I mean, if you look at some of the shifts that happened, a lot of it started out with translation. We'll translate what we know in other mediums onto the web, and basically we built bulletin boards, and we built these structures that were just about information out. Over time, people realized that they wanted to participate in that, and whether that's participating in the growing of collective information, or participating in a way where they can sort of gain something, gain something back. I mean, it's funny to watch yet another shift that's happened. So what I look about at the social network sites, they're not just about contributing, but they're actually about the opportunity to define your world by you and your friends.
Now, you say social network site. That's a term of art. Are these sites social network sites?
Not quite. What constitutes a social network site in particular is the ability to go and list and articulate who your friends are, create a unique and identifiable profile, something that sort of puts you in the middle of it.
So what's an example?
Facebook, Myspace, Friendster, there's tons of them globally.
How many people here have a Myspace profile? Sounds like about anywhere from 12 to 15. How many have a Facebook profile? Facebook seems to have it all over MySpace. I think Elizabeth might be able to throw up a couple examples of each, but while she is, why don't you tell us what's the difference between these two sites? Is it just kind of Coke versus Pepsi?
Well, their history is actually set in many ways the flavor. I think we've got MySpace up straight. MySpace actually grew out of a response to another social network site called Friendster. Friendster launched in San Francisco in order to compete with dating sites. So it was framed around a dating structure so that you would go and you would meet people. But people quickly learned that this was a great place to socialize and be silly with their friends. In the same way we had spamming on the different sites, people started creating fake profiles and just really being goofy. The company didn't like it. They hated it. And so they pushed away many of its users. And in return, many of them went to MySpace. MySpace sort of fleshed out through the music communities, through urban arts centers, and worked its way down to the teenagers through those same patterns.
So what we're looking at right now, I guess, is somebody, here is your homepage on MySpace.
Right.
And that looks...
boring.
Interesting. No, I wouldn't say boring. And there you are speaking. And then if we go down, we can see who your friends are.
So each of these social network sites have a listing like this, which is the friends. And if you think about friends, it's not necessarily your closest and dearest. It's basically who you imagine your audience to be. It's who you imagine to be part of your social circle.
So you have 430 friends. Is that a lot?
No, I'm actually pretty lame on these sites. Most of, interestingly, there's these sort of moves. Some people have like 30, 40, 50 friends. This is actually when they keep it very close and intimate. The next wave is usually around 200 to 300. This is when you're friends with your entire school and the people you know from church and that sort of collective.
Kind of like on Valentine's Day in elementary school, you had to write one to every student.
You had to accept everybody. I mean, think of how rude it is. If you friended me and I was like, oh, that would be mean. So I'd have to be friends with you whether or not I wanted to.
So the fact that we're friends doesn't mean we're friends.
No, not necessarily.
What about the top friends?
Right, so MySpace has this sort of unique feature, and it was the ability to find your friends quickly. So they had you list your top friends, and think about it as your best and bestest friends, and it forms every form of social drama that you can possibly imagine from middle school, right?
I only mention this because I'm a middle schooler at heart, and I notice myself in your top friends.
Aww.
I'm right there.
Congratulations. That's terrific. And now if we click on one of your top friends, if we click on Jimbo Wales, it'll go to your MySpace page.
Right.
And I guess it's trying to do that.
So MySpace, unlike the other ones, basically made a technological boo-boo, resulting in the ability that anybody could modify their pages to basically bring back the blink tag. And these pages turn into this horrible, blinky, smiley, sound-driven teenage bedroom wall. And that was one of the funny things about the other sites that are much more like austere and trying to be much more simple.
But you don't like the blinky.
Well, some people like the blinky. Ooh, what's this?
Unexpected.
I don't know, but it's been forwarded to I'm waiting for his pager to ring. Somehow it's all going to end up on Craig's lap. So, You were saying it's kind of noisy and cacophonous and all that, but you were a moment ago extolling the virtues of letting people express themselves.
It's just this, it's an aesthetic that works for some people and doesn't work for others, right? It's an aesthetic that to some people is just wonderful and explosive and expressive, and to others is like visual overload. But I find that most parents feel the same way about their teenagers' bedrooms, and that's where there's an interesting parallel in that kind of flavor.
Now, of course, what happens in the teenage bedroom generally stays in the teenage bedroom. What happens on your MySpace page, if there's, say, hypothetically, a number of parents out there, would you advise them to befriend their kids on MySpace and keep an eye on what's going on?
By and large, no. I actually invite them to have a conversation with their kids and have their kids show them their page. Many kids actually invite their parents. The interesting thing is that now well over 2/3 of MySpace profiles by teenagers are private, meaning friends only. So your parents typically can't just go and lurk, they have to be friends. So it's about, in many ways, it's about creating a dialogue rather than stalking.
I guess if I'm an enterprising teen, I would create a decoy page for my parents.
Oh, and there are plenty that have.
Huh. And so not only might I not actually be friends with you, I might not actually be friends with you.
There's an idea called mirror networks, right? So the basic idea is that you, Craig, and I are friends. We're friends on the site. Craig's mom sees his profile and is angry. So she calls up both of our moms and is like, did you see this horrible, horrible site? And our profiles aren't really that bad. But they decide to sort of be liberal and allow us to have these profiles and tell us that we have to basically take off every identifying information. Well, we become unidentifiable to our friends. That's fine, we'll make this generic page that we allow our parents to see, and then we mirror the exact same network by doing 3 totally different profiles.
I see. News you can use. So, what makes this revolutionary? I mean, it sounds like somebody looking at this, maybe for the first time, would say, great, kids can list their friends, and then they're all friends with each other, full stop.
Well, it's a reorganization of the public web. Earliest days, like for example, Craig mentioned the Well and Usenet, some of these earliest structures were all organized by topics, interests, people who would come together because they were passionate about motorcycles, so they would go to the rec.motorcycles Usenet group or mailing list. Well, as people got online, they weren't necessarily interested in finding the people who had or shared their hobbies. And besides, you really don't want a room with every cat lover on the planet. You can't actually have a conversation like that. So what happened is that people actually retreated during the e-commerce boom, and they focused entirely about communicating with their friends in private forums, IM and email, and then doing sort of information gathering more publicly. The social network sites are really the rise of a new form of public organization on the web. It's all ego-centered, meaning it starts with you and it's your friends. It's like your dinner party. You don't invite the whole public, you invite you and your friends, and if somebody brings another friend, you're excited by it. So this entire structure is now networked, truly networked. It's a networked public. And my friends might be different than Craig's friends, but each of us can communicate with our circle and find overlap in other ways.
So this might be exactly in the zone of your thesis topic, but does it mean that the act of being a teenager today is truly different from what it was 15 years ago?
Well, it's different in that they're doing this on the web, but they're doing many of the same things that you and I did in public places all the time. They hang out, they talk, yo, what's up? Not much, how you? Good, what's going on? Nothing, right? Back and forth all day. And these are the same things that we did. We just did them in different environments, right? And so, there are 4 properties that are, unique to this.
A revolutionary new way to waste time.
Yeah, well, the thing is that hanging out, we look as adults back as though it's wasting time, but in many ways, actually, it's the way we understand the social world around us. It's how we understand status, it's how we understand social roles, it's how we make sense of how you respond, like what is your appropriate response to a particular question. That kind of social negotiation is really critical in those